Welcome to Fox Encounter. I am your host, Fox. Please consider taking a few seconds to subscribe, drop a like on the video, and share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more content and enjoy the episode. I found sometimes too where I was just like, man, like I support a lot of people, but a lot of these like people don't ever support me. But it's all good because like, and even then, like I still don't get upset about it. I'm like, it's whatever. I'm still gonna support you guys because that's just the kind of person that I am. I wanna, like you said, you do too. Like I just want to see you do good. Like I have no ill will towards anyone because, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's just YouTube. That's what I've told people so many times. I was like, I don't know why we get so hung up on numbers and fans and who's doing what. I was like, this in the grand scheme of life, this is just like one moment in life, and when we really think about it, it doesn't really matter. Not to say that it's not important, but it's really just a small portion of our lives. And in reality, a lot of us are just doing this because it's fun, because we enjoy it. And so like I think that's probably where a lot of the criticisms from other people towards me come from, and is because I'm just always like, bro, why are we so hung up on what this other person is doing? Like, who cares? Like, we're all just supposed to be having fun and just kind of like supporting each other. But I'll see that too. I'll see some people like, they care too much about numbers and stuff like that. I'm like, it really shouldn't matter. I mean, just have fun with it. I guess that's what keeps me. That's one of the questions I was going to ask you, is like, what kind of keeps you, motivated to just continue putting out content? And like, for me, it's just, I just genuinely have fun with it. Like in the interviews that I have, I genuinely am having fun when I'm making these conversations. Like the conversation I'm having with you, I genuinely just have fun talking to people. I guess that's why I stopped making those other videos, because I just stopped having fun with them, even though people really did enjoy them. People are like, man, why did you get rid of all those videos? It's like, I just didn't. It may seem like I was having a good time, but that was just like a facade that I was putting on. I really was just not having a good time making those videos. So that's why I always tell people, like, even if this is really it, and this is where I'm kind of, if I've already plateaued and this is where I'm going to stay, I'm okay with that, because I'm just having the time of my life having these great conversations with people.
I think, like I said, I kind of touched on it a little bit already. So the community does help, because like I said, I feel like I have some people who genuinely want to see me do well, who genuinely believe in what I have to say, who genuinely believe in my content. And I can tell, I'm not into, I don't want to say flattery in general, but I'm not into people blowing smoke just because, or just throwing words at me because it's like, oh, but because I can tell the difference. And I think when people tell me, or even like what you said earlier, like when people tell me that there is a distinction or there's something that stands out about it, or like I feel like the way that you perceive film and all that kind of stuff, all those things affirm me in a way that I don't always believe. I think that it's tough, because I think that like I said, I do recognize that there is purpose in what I do, and I do think that there is something special about it. I do think that sometimes the journey to get there, and how it's basically like pulling teeth, it can cause a lot of doubt. And then, I get mad at myself because it's like, I was just telling someone, when it comes to the videos that I do and the editing process and all that, I wish I knew how to shut up, because I think that, because I have so much to say sometimes, like it kind of, it makes the process more complicated. I love the fact that folks can throw out the 5-minute videos. I've done like a 7 here, and I've done it to where it's been, and they're not bad reviews. They're fine. It's just hard because if this connects to this and this connects to that, then it's hard to condense sometimes. And sometimes I just have to say it. Like I feel like it was very important to say that piece in the Nope review about people having the whole the whole perspective of, you didn't like it because you didn't understand it. I'm like, I have to take a stand here, but that extended the process. So, sometimes I'm like, well, maybe if I would just not do, but then it's like, if I didn't do that, and mind you, there's room to still condense as far as me being efficient and knowing what needs to be said and what not to be said. Like, I can always improve in that sense, but I don't have to necessarily. Oh, I actually just saw this earlier. What I know about myself now, and I'm so glad I saw this just in time for this. Don't ask me to be less because you don't want to be more. So for me, I don't have to shrink myself, and I don't have to become this version of myself that is not genuine simply because it might yield more rewards on this platform or in life. I feel like what you put out still matters, and I feel like character still matters. And I think it was like one of my it was either one of I think it probably was like one of my aunts who said that manners and character and just like the quality of your heart, that will take you places that money cannot. And people can have all of that, these platforms, these brands, these like all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, what does your heart actually reflect? And what are you actually putting out to people? And what is actually going to come back into your life as a result of that? And I feel like as long as I am continuing to put that out and connect with people, I feel like one of the biggest blessings and the biggest rewards, I'm not monetized or anything like that, but I feel like one of the biggest rewards has been meeting people in person. Because like, who thought that, being on here, like we're at Disney World, or we just saw Smile at the Studio Movie Grill, and, so on and so forth. I feel like it's been so cool to actually fit. And it's weird because, well, it's not weird anymore, but it was weird at first. It's like, it's happening in a season where I don't have a lot of friendships, like, the Ponderosa, as I call it, 2020. Like, I feel like a lot of folks just like, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Now is my time to break away. And it was disorienting at first, but now I'm kind of glad it happened, because I feel like it is conveniently opened up the space in my life for people who are just present in a different way. And then we don't have to necessarily be in the same place, as you can see, but I feel like these are real, genuine bonds here. And which is crazy, because there was a time where I was just like, don't go on the internet. You can't make friends on the internet. You're going to wind up in a ditch somewhere. But, but it's been a genuinely gratifying thing to experience. And maybe one day I will have to visit Arizona. I might have to visit Arizona. We might have to hang out. If you are absolutely certain I'm an axe murderer, so we'll just see how that goes.
I'll know or I won't.
Right.
I swear I will not kill anyone.
There's a few other questions that I had, but I feel like we can do those. We can save those questions for another time. But this one that I'm gonna wrap it up with, is a question that you've probably gotten a lot, but I wanted to ask you because I got you here, and that probably know where this is going. But why have you not watched The Office yet?
Honestly, it's the same answer I have for. Well, there are two answers I have for like a bulk of the shows I haven't seen, because half of it is the overabundance of streaming platforms that are available, because every streaming platform has about 100 things for you to watch, and then the next platform has 100 movies, 100 TV shows, 100. Each one has their exclusive. Each has something. So trying to keep up, and each queue that you have for each one is about this high. So it is a challenge trying to figure out what's next. Should I try this one or should I try that? Now, in the case of The Office, it is simply timing, because like I feel like there's certain shows that I've watched because I caught it in the time in which it came out, and then I was aware of it, or I found it. The Office one is one of those where I feel like I was completely oblivious to it for a really, really long time. And when
Mhm.
I found Steve Carell, it was in the 40-year-old version. And that was an experience in and of itself. But then later it was I kept seeing these clips, and I'm like, and I just it never clicked as to what it was. And then
Mhm.
it was probably within the last, ooh, I want to say maybe I want to say like past maybe like 2016, 17, maybe 15. I felt like that's when I started hearing more about it, and I had friends who watched it and knew what the show was, but at the time it didn't it seemed like an interesting show, but I never knew when I should get into it or
Mhm.
how or where to start. So a lot of shows, like it's beneficial to have people who are just like, okay, start here, and here's what you like about it, or so on and so forth. Someone said to me with Game of Thrones, the same thing with Game of Thrones. I was so off the and for me, like I'm because I've seen this thing where people do where it's just like, and I get it. I understand what you mean. But some people really make this whole thing their personality where it's just like, and I've seen statuses about it when I used to use Facebook more, but it's like, I don't watch what everyone else is watching. It's like I watch things that aren't the norm. I watch things that isn't whatever because I don't do what everyone else does. Okay, listen, I get it. No one is saying that. I mean, it's great to be individual and do your own thing. And I would never suggest that someone like be a band. Like I get it. Like I understand, but at some point we're made aware of certain shows by somebody or something. So it's weird to then assume that I'm trying to bandwagon or like I can't think for myself because it may be something I already had an interest in, or it's just like it may pique my interest in some type of way. But I've seen that a lot where it's just kind of this idea of like, if you watch this, then you're getting on board with this this facet of society and this and this. And it's like, I don't, we are just talking about television programming, so, of which may not be available in other places. So let's like, I don't think that it has to be attached to my sense of self and identity or any of that. So, because I've even seen that with The Office. It's like I'm in the what is it? I'm in the 2% of people who's never seen The Office. I'm my own person. Like, oh, can we not do this? Like, why are we attaching this to this? So,
Why are you the way that you are?
bringing it back around, I just never had the push or like the right people to say like, oh, check this out and let's talk. Because really, the best experience I've had is like watching shows with certain people or watching a show and then we discuss it after, or like those have
Mhm.
been like some really fun experiences. Like once upon a time, oh my gosh, me and my best friend, like we kind of like I got on board with that show and then I told her like, I think you need to watch this. And I remember we were hanging out watching it. She like looked at me after that first episode was over and she was like, like I wasn't expecting that. So what do you think is going to happen? What? And then we just went from there. So I
Mhm.
think because I didn't have that, I think it helps to have people who are kind of cluing you in and then to kind of discuss it and chop it up with. So that's really the only
Yeah.
thing. It looks like an entertaining show, and I've seen so many memes and so many reaction videos and all that kind of stuff that comes from it. It's just you kind of have to know where to start and people to give you that. And I never had that.
Yeah. See, that's a good answer rather than for me, it took me a long time to watch Stranger Things because it was just super hyped at the time. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know. And I finally watched it like when season 2 ended.
Mhm.
And well, actually, the only reason I watched it was because I found the first 2 seasons on Blu-ray at Goodwill for like $2. So I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, like this is crazy. Like I've never seen this before. And I was like, bought them with the intent to just sell them. Because I was like, oh well, Stranger Things is pretty hot right now, and it's a Netflix
Right.
thing. There's no physical release for it for these things except for these
Right.
two
Right.
seasons. So I was like, I can make some money off of these. But then I was like, I'll just watch them really quick, just as I guess,
Mhm.
just to, whatever. And I watched it and I was like, oh man, this is so good. I get it.
Mhm.
I get it. All right. It's like now I finally get it. So now I'm just like super into it. So that was one of those
Right.
that was one of those shows too where it's like it's even better for me too when um I'm cautious about it and then I finally watch it and I love it and I'm like, yes, that makes me love it even more because I had that hesitation at first. Whereas, like I said before, people have hyped up shows or movies for me all the time. They're like, oh, you should watch this movie. It's great. You should watch this TV show. It's great. And I watch it and I'm just like, nah, like it's okay, I guess. Or I just straight up, I just don't like it.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Let me give you an example. When was it? Was it last year? When talking about the most like disappointing movies, I've mentioned this a few times. Like the most disappointing movie I saw last year was The Northman, and everybody hyped it up so much, and I was like, all right, cool, let me watch this. And I watched it, and I was like, it's okay. I mean, it was nothing like and I had never even saw a trailer for it. I think I saw like one little promo for it, and then I had heard people talking about, oh, it's like crazy, brutal Viking action movie, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's like that's what I want to see. That'd be awesome. Watched it, and I was like, this is an art house film with Vikings. That's exactly what it is. It's not an action movie. The story itself is pretty weak and predictable, and I just didn't like it. I was saying, like, it's just very style over substance, and that's not always a bad thing. But when it comes to this story, like I was telling my buddy Tex, I was like, it just wasn't what I wanted. And I get why people liked it, and if you like it, fine. It's just it was not what I wanted. So I was like, I didn't hate it. I was just super disappointed.
Yeah. And it's so funny because when I saw the trailer for The Northman or like the clips I saw, it screamed A24, which is not an insult because there are plenty of A24 films that I have enjoyed immensely. And I appreciate the fact that it's art house, it's not mainstream, like the concepts and the narratives that, the type of films they distribute. I appreciate that a lot. But, something comes to mind. Like if someone said, what does A24 look to you? Like when I saw like some of the imagery from that, like this very much feels like A24 to me. And like I said, not in a negative way, but I'm like, something about the, and even take the A24 piece out of it, just looking at it, it gave me kind of that style. This feels like kind of like we're doing some kind of surrealist, kind of, maybe not quite experimental, but like we're taking the whole Viking thing and we're doing this other just kind of moody expressionist, like we're doing this this conceptual thing with it. And I'm like, that can work because I've seen some films like Mulholland Drive is like one of my all-time favorites, and that's one of the films where I went in and I saw it when I was far too young to even make sense of a film like that. But I was just like, who, what, where, when, why, and how? Like how that was my first time where I was like, oh, it is possible to make a film and just throw whatever in with no rhyme or reason. Like I was so put off by that film. And it's a film that I will always have a special appreciation for because I got older and it's just one of those films that kept circling around to. I'm like, oh, is this that crazy movie? And then, circled back around and then it was like, And like these little pieces fell into place. I'm like, I keep coming back to this. Why? And, then over time, I literally held that film as a masterpiece, but it is not easy. It is not accessible. It is not something you will walk in and be like this makes sense. And this is like some films just have layers and the way in which they tell the story is layered and the filmmaking techniques are layered, So I appreciate that, but it doesn't work for every film, and I don't connect to that in every film. So with The Northman, that's something I was definitely worried about. So when you commented on the video, I'm like, well, I'm not that surprised. So
yeah, that was one of those two where I was kind of not worried, but I was like, I feel like I might get a lot of heat for this. But I found that a lot of people had that same opinion, but they just weren't as vocal about it as I was. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm proud to be that kind of mouthpiece for a lot of people who can't voice their opinion. Because there's a lot of people who have told me in the DMs and stuff, because they just can't say it out in public, but they will always tell me
Right.
like, hey man, I'm glad you said that because I feel the same exact way, but I just don't want to get all the hate for saying it. And I was like,
Right,
that's fine. I'll
exactly.
say it. I can take the hate. I can take the heat. I'll say it.
Exactly. One thing I was going to say, as far as the kind of the hype train and things like that, and that's why, like, I feel like there are so many nuances, like, to hype and things like that. And the example I used was kind of one of those more extreme things where I feel like there's like this middle ground. And I'll give you a good example of something because I went to go see Wonder Woman, ended up seeing it with my friends. It was kind of an accident because I went to go see it by myself. And then I asked people if they wanted to go, and no one said anything. I'm like, I just wanted to give the opportunity, but I'm fine going by myself. And then I guess some other people ended up coming, and I don't think they had seen I don't think they had seen like my message, or they might have seen it and responded to it, and I didn't. At that point, I didn't realize they were coming, and so they saw the showing like right after. It was only about like 30 minutes. So I end up like, oh, you guys are here. And so I end up going, long story short, end up going to the theater. So I got to watch the first 30 minutes all over again. And it was a blast. It was a fun time. And one of my friends made a status saying, like, in this season, Wonder Woman really empowered me because I felt like, Wonder Woman was about her mission. I feel like as a woman, this is what I've been called to do. I feel like I have certain things in my life. I want to when she was on No Man's Land, I was like, I want to be able to like knock, like it just spoke to her in a very specific way, right? Which is her experience. Well, another one of my friends, or let's just say someone within the ministry, she saw the movie and it was it was one of those kind of statuses where it's just like, you guys really got to stop hyping things up because I watched Wonder Woman and, I did not feel empowered as a woman and it wasn't this and it wasn't that and it wasn't so on. And I really wanted to comment and say, like, you do know you can just add her next time. That would be easier. And the thing is, if that's how she feels, that's how she feels. But the issue, I took issue with the statement because who said and who promised that when you went to watch Wonder Woman, that you would feel empowered as a woman and that you would feel all the things that she felt that she is currently experiencing in this season that spoke to her? Now, was that something that was promised to you, or is that something that you believed would be given to you as a result of looking at her experience? And mind you, I also understand like it's hard to see something like that and maybe think like, oh, it's going to be something. But I'm like, but then there's also you and then what you enter in with. So I think that there are so many nuances when it comes to that. Because I also find that, I mean, sometimes I have expectations and I hope that it'll be good and it meets it. There are times where I've had higher expectations and they didn't meet it. And then I've had, low expectations and it came out higher. So like, there are different ways that it can kind of work. Because I'll be honest, before this, I saw Dungeons and Dragons. And as I mentioned on my IG story, going off the trailer, I was like, yikes, this looks rough. And it was a blast. Surprise! I was shocked. Same thing with John Wick 4. I was like, look, 2 and 3, like the first one has been the best one for me. It's enjoyable, but it hasn't had that same kind of, I don't know, it hasn't grabbed me in that same way. So with 4, even though I had obvious issues with it, I was like, this is a thrill ride. Like I really enjoy this. So I just say that to say, like, I understand like it's difficult because, and then sometimes with hype, you just have a lot of, not everyone, I'm just saying, but sometimes a lot of people are speaking from their experience, and those things kind of get pushed as a summation of what a film is, where there are always opportunities for you to kind of be on, in the minority or feel differently about it. A lot of folks, going into Venom 2, that was on my 2021 list, but going into Venom 2, I was like, the first Venom was so bad. It's good. It was just like, this is kind of a mess, but I'm really entertained by this. So I don't need for Venom 2 to be good. It's just, and shockingly, like Venom 2, like I said in my review, I have never been so, I have never felt captive, like I was being held captive during a 90-minute movie. And it was just like, I
Mhm.
want this to be over. Like, I'm not a person to kind of get up and leave because I'm like, I've already
Mhm.
taken the time. Like, I want to see this through. But it was just like, oh, how can this be so much worse, but not enjoyable compared to the first one? So, yeah. So it's kind of one of those things where expectation, hype, the final product, how you feel, it's kind of like this big kind of like melting pot, and you never know what you're going to get. But
Mhm.
I will say that I do agree that a lot of times it seems like the lower your expectations are, you end up being surprised. And that did happen for John Wick 4 and then Chapter 4 and then Dungeons and Dragons. And I think that's fun because I've said it before. I like being wrong. I'm fine
Yeah.
being wrong because I love the feeling of, oh, the opposite feeling is what I don't really enjoy. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I try to balance it out as best I can, but it's hard sometimes because you never know quite how you're going to feel.
Mhm. Like yeah, I'm kind of the same. I don't. I guess now in my older age, I just don't expect much from
Mhm.
pretty much anything. Like when it comes to like film and stuff, I kind of just go into it, and I tend to find way more enjoyment in stuff now because I don't have any expectations. Like when
Right.
people ask me like, "Oh, why did you like this movie? It's pretty bad." It's like, I mean, sure it's bad, but that doesn't
Mhm.
change the fact that I had a good time, or it doesn't change the fact that I
Exactly.
was entertained. Because,
Hmm.
and when a lot of times when people will tell me that, and that's because they had really high expectations for it, and so they ended up being disappointed. Whereas me, I go into most things now with zero
Hmm.
expectation. Like
Exactly.
like we were talking a little bit in the beginning about this guy who told me about like Megan. He asked me like, "Oh, did you enjoy Megan?" And a lot of people from my I haven't even posted the poll yet, but according to the poll that I put up, like a lot of people just thought it was just okay. It wasn't really good or bad. It's just kind of in the middle. I enjoyed it. And that's because I didn't really know much about it at all. I never watched any kind of
Hmm.
trailers about it or anything. So I went into it pretty
Hmm.
much blind, and I was like, I kind of enjoy this. I enjoy it. I like it. Um, will I be buying it like for $24? I don't think so. But if I find it like, at my local secondhand store for like
Right.
less than $12, then sure, yeah.